Hi guys, hope you are well. Today's video is going to be about when I first purchased my home, my very first home at the age of 19. So many of you guys have said to me, how did you do it? How did you get on the property market so young? It's so hard. And this was only, what, 5-6 years ago? It'll be 6 years ago this year. So it wasn't very long ago. So a lot of you guys have said, like, how did you do it? And the property market back then was still as uncertain and so high and things like that as it is now. House prices are just utterly ridiculous. And there was quite a few different things that we did. There were a lot of things that we've learned along the way. We've rented, we've bought, we've gone back into rented, we've bought again. So we've got a lot of experience of the market, when it's right to do certain things, how to save and things like that. So if you want some tips on how you can get onto the property market too at a young age, then just keep watching. Okay, so the first thing that I want to speak to you guys about is renting. Now, renting for me is very two-sided. I said when we first rented our first property, we rented a 2-bedroom flat, and me and Adam were just desperate to get out of our house and kind of live with each other. We'd been living at his parents for about 6 or 7 months together, I think, and we just really wanted our own space. And we were so desperate, and I really wanted our own space and to make a home together and things like that. So it was a month after I turned 18, we actually moved into our first flat together and we started renting. Now, for me, I love the flat. However, I would advise, if you can, to avoid renting. Now, there are pros and cons. The reason why I'm saying that is because what we realised in those short 10 months for renting was the fact that we were paying almost double what we could be paying on a mortgage for the same price. Now, the reason this is because basically when you rent a property, landlords generally are advised that if you are on a buy-to-let mortgage, which the landlord would have to be on for you to rent the property, then they normally have to have the mortgage value or the rental amount at 125%. So let's say, for instance, say they pay £1,000 to their mortgage lender each month, they should be giving us the property for £1,250. That's basically the way that it works and the principle that kind of lies behind it. However, you can already see that they're making a £250 extra margin there, and that's their income, which is why buy-to-let is so profitable. However, generally, people can get away with doing a lot more. So where we were renting was on the London borders. We were South East London, on the borders of Kent and London. And the reason why they can get away with it is because it's so oversaturated there. The market is so high. Rental properties go, if they're good, in seconds. Like, they'll be up for days and then they'll be gone. So renting can be very, very expensive. However, the flip side to renting is the fact that you do get to see how to manage bills, and if you've never done that before, it's a really good base. It kind of prepares you to see, are you actually ready to buy your own home? Are you ready for the commitment? There are so many bills that we never even thought of, from like council tax and contents insurance and water and all these different things, TV licenses and stuff like that. There is so much that goes into renting a property, and so it kind of gives you an idea of the expenditure that will be going out minus the higher rental values and things like that. Now, another good thing for renting is the fact that if you are looking to purchase a property, you are in a really, really good place as a first-time buyer or any sort of buyer if you are renting. Now, we realised this when we sold our first property, because we wanted to buy another property and we wanted to buy another new build, and for example, the 28-day exchange period that new builds allow wasn't enough time for us to get our house sold. Then we would be homeless, so we actually went back into renting in between, and then it then meant that when we found a property that we liked, we could just go. We were ready to get the ball rolling, get all the mortgage things in place and go with it. Okay, so the next thing that I want to speak to you about is deposits. Now, deposits are so hard to save. However, there are lots of different ways around it and different things that you can do. So the first thing that I would suggest is, if you can, stay living at home with parents and you're avoiding all of those rental costs. Obviously, those rental costs are obviously going to add up and they're going to take out a massive chunk of your money each month, and it's amazing how much you can save living at home. So we actually rented for 10 months, then went back to living with Adam's parents and saved and saved and saved, and I think we'd bought our home within like a year or two after that. I think it was about a year or so after we put down the deposit, and then we had to wait, I think it was around 5 or 6 months for our property to be built, but we managed to save so much in that time. The reason why it's so important to save is because not only do you have to look at saving for a deposit, but there are also so many other things that come into it. So you have to think about your solicitor fees when you move. You also have to think about actually kitting out your property with sofas and beds and fridge freezers and washing machines and all things like that. If you move into a new build, generally there's extras you've got to pay for and flooring, and there's so many things you need to consider. Now, I would not only massively consider living with parents, but really go through and make a budget and look at that budget. Look at where you can cut out costs. So for example, I used to work in London and I used to spend a fortune a day on breakfast and lunch. I would probably say around £15–20 a day on lunch and breakfast and coffees and things like that, which is just ridiculous. When you cast it over a week, it's £100 a week, £400 a month just gone on food and drink. And that's not even including dinners and going out with like Adam and things like that. So really look at maybe bringing in your own lunches and things like that. I would also consider cutting things like Sky out, Netflix, whatever it may be, really limiting down. And this sounds really stupid, but obviously these are all going to affect how much money is coming in whilst you're trying to save. And my last point on this would be to also have a look at what you've got going out credit-wise. Now, to buy a property, you need to have a really, really good credit score. No one's going to lend to you if your credit is bad. So first point, going back to obviously the deposits and the saving, is obviously make sure you don't take out any new credit prior to moving in. This really affects the affordability and the amount that mortgage lenders will actually borrow to you. Say you really want a new car, see if you can hold off with that new car until after you've done your mortgage and you've got on your house and you've moved in. Then try and look at doing it, because it will really affect how much you can borrow. Now, saying that doesn't mean don't be sensible with your money at the same time. I know I'm saying hold off because mortgage lenders look at what you can borrow, they see how much it is, and they think, can you do it within your means and things like that. Sometimes you may have well more than you need to kind of keep it within your needs, and the amount they might borrow you might be loads more than what you actually want or need. But I'm just saying, be careful with it. It doesn't mean after you've moved in, go out and buy that new car and then be skint. Obviously make sure it's within your budget, but it will affect your affordability. Now, like I said, I just touched on it, but you also want to make sure that you do have good credit. I would recommend signing up to something like Credit Expert or Experian or something like that. I think they're like £15 a month when you sign up, and really look at doing this, I would say at least 6 months in advance of you looking to buy a property. And when you're getting the ball rolling on this, you want to make sure things like you're on the electoral roll where you live, and you want to make sure that there's no missed payments. And if there are and you disagree with them, then you need to fight against them. Likewise, things like missed payments, default, CCJs, anything like that will go against you. And I think so many young people now think, oh, it doesn't matter if I don't pay this back or if I miss a payment, but it can really, really affect you in the future. So if you are young and you want to buy a property, really make sure you're keeping on top of the credit that you've got, even if it's just meeting the minimum payment. Prioritise that over drinks at the weekends with your friends, otherwise you're never going to get anywhere. I would also make sure things like all of your credit lenders, if you have a couple of credit cards, make sure they're all registered to your current address. You need to be trackable and findable for mortgage companies to be able to find you easily and know that you are who you say you are and that everything matches up. Likewise, you're going to want to make sure you have got good credit, and all of these points help enhance your credit and get you to the top. I think me and Adam had like a 998 credit score for such a long time. And every time, for example, that you do a credit check and things like that, it knocks your credit score. So really look into those. I think anything more than 3 credit checks in a 3-month period is deemed as bad and kind of can affect your credit score quite a bit. So really look into that. And also likewise, don't go and do loads of different things on your credit because it can affect you. So the next point that I want to make is, if you are young or you're old, if you're a first time buyer or not even a first time buyer, say you're buying your second or third property and it's your only property you're going to own, really consider and look at the schemes that new builds offer. Now, the reason why I say this is because when me and Adam purchased our first property, our local council actually had an offer that they used with the development, and basically it meant that we got 25% of a loan as such against our house that council owned. So we owned all the property. It was a bit weird, and it's very much like the Help to Buy. So we owned the full property. They loaned us 25% of the value, and it was interest free for 25 years. Now that was an absolutely amazing scheme, and it was out before the Help to Buy scheme actually existed. But now Help to Buy is very similar, whereby they do 20%, but it's for 5 years, and then it's interest free, and you can choose to staircase it, pay it back and things like that. I would recommend that anyone do that, because ultimately for that 5-year period, you are saving interest on 20% of your mortgage. When you put that into a mortgage payment, if you were to get the mortgage amount for the full amount, even if you can afford it, you're still going to be paying interest on that 20% that you just don't need to pay. Then what you can look at do is after the 5 years, you can look at them buying the council out, or Help to Buy, which is the government. You can look at buying them out and just getting a mortgage for the bigger amount, and then all you've done is you've saved yourself that 5% interest for all of that time. It's a really cost-effective way to do things. I would also consider, if you're a first-time buyer, to look at the buildings accounts. I think it's like building societies and banks and things like that. A lot of them offer that if you're saving alongside, they can offer you to put funds in, and if you save with the bank, I think NatWest do it, then they offer you kind of really good early low rates as well for getting out your mortgage. So as long as you've been saving alongside them, they have special offers for either first-time buyers or people that are saving with them. So again, that's another option that I'd consider. Look to kind of do that and save with a bank and things like that. So I know I briefly touched on budgeting, but another aspect of this is saving and making money. So the first thing that I want to point out with regards to saving money is you are not really going to be able to save money unless you've done a budget. So primarily do that budget, see what you've got left at the end of the month, and then what I would recommend is that you actually put that money aside straight away. Take that money and have a standing order coming out of your account on payday each month, whether it's £100, £200, £1,000, whatever you can afford. Take out the maximum money and have it going into a savings account. That way that money is no longer in your bank account, and you can really assess what's left and use it, and then you work towards and use the money that's in your bank account. If you have an extra £1,000 or an extra £500 in your bank account, during the month you will dip into that. There is no other way about it. You will use it. It is just part of the parcel of life. If we've got it, we just seem to think it's there, and it's really hard to not touch it. So I would really recommend moving it out of your account and doing that. Likewise, the next way is make extra money. So for us, it was about making as much money as possible in our house as we could. So we did things like no spends, where we went like a whole month and we didn't spend any extras. I'm actually in the process of doing a no spend January at the moment, which means any unnecessary purchases I'm not making. So no new clothes, no new home items, no new, I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm not buying it because my bank balance really needs this help and recovery period since the Christmas period. So what I would recommend is you really kind of avoid spending. Not only that, I would look at making extra income wherever you can. So work extra hours at work if possible. Take on overtime if possible. And something that me and Adam did loads during this period was we did like fakeaway dinners. So we made like a Slimming World fakeaway dinner. So maybe we made like a Chinese or an Indian, and instead of having a takeaway, we did that. That saves you so much money. If you spend £20 or £30 on a takeaway, even if you had a pizza, for example, and you went to, I don't know, Domino's and you get a pizza for £20, you can go and buy the equivalent for like £5. So you're saving yourself £15 just there. And then look at what you was going to spend. So say you did want a Domino's, put that £15 into your savings account. The last thing that we did loads of was selling old stuff that we didn't need. Now, this not only helped us in the move process because it meant that we weren't moving clutter from one house to the next, but by decluttering, it meant that our living space was better and we made extra money. And there was so much money we made. I mean, we made about £1,000, I'd say, from selling old things. There were like handbags that I had that I no longer wanted. We did so many boot sales. So we did so many. I'd never done a boot sale prior to doing a boot sale myself when we moved, before we bought our first house, and I'd never done it before. And I was that person standing there with all this stuff that still had loads of tags on, and people wanted to offer me £2 for it, and I was like, no, that's £20 please, love. And yeah, I quickly realised that I wasn't getting that amount of money, but I didn't need it anymore. It was only going to go to the tip or something like that. In the end, I think a lot of it we end up getting and bringing it to charity shops, anything that we didn't want, and then bagging it up in those, you know, those bags that you get and like the dumper trucks, and they weigh your clothes and give you money, and I think we got like £3 for it, which was pointless. I'd have rather given it to a charity shop. However, by doing boot sales and selling online, like Facebook is so easy to sell on. You've got Depop, you've got Shpock. There are so many different places that you can go onto and have a look at. These are really, really good ways. Likewise, to save a bit of money when you are buying things, I would highly recommend Quidco. I have used it for years now. I will leave the link below if you want to sign up, because I believe that if you sign up using the link below, you actually get £5 after you've made your first purchase or got your first cash back or something like that, but I'll leave all the information below for you. But basically, I love Quidco. I use it on everything that I buy. You just pop onto their website, type in the name of the retailer you're buying from, see if there's an offer on to get interest back or you get a percentage back, click through on the link, and there you go, you've got it. You can shop on there and you're done, and it pulls through all your things that are in your basket as well, so it's really easy to use and a way to make money. And I just think selling what you don't need is great. I also wanted to mention that another thing that me and Adam did was any loose change that we had, we put into like a pot, a savings pot, and it was kind of any time we broke into any money. I'm a big fan of not actually having coins in my purse. So if I've got them, I generally chuck them into like the self-checkout and things like that. But what we actually started doing was, instead of doing that, we made a savings pot. And the amount of money that you can save just by chucking in like the odd pound coin or the odd 20 and 50p's on a daily basis, just emptying out your purse, your wallet, your pockets, whatever it is, you actually save so much money. So I would also highly recommend any loose change, popping it away. Don't lose it, don't risk it going walkabouts and kind of falling out your pocket. Don't use it. You can really make a lot of money by doing that. And again, it's money that you don't really notice is going, that you can save from. So keeping in line with like the whole money making thing, I would also highly recommend you set savings goals. By doing this, you can really kind of focus on how much you want to save by when. I would maybe write down a list of things you're going to need. So for example, your deposit's the first thing you're going to need to save by. If you know you want to move by March, then you've got 3 months to make that money. You know how much you want to make and you know how much you've got to put away each month. If you've then got excess money, you can then put that into another savings pot for, say, I don't know, your solicitor fees and things like that. But really make a look at making goals, because they really help you to kind of really see where your money needs to be going each month. Off the back of that, I would also recommend that you get an independent financial advisor to help you. Now, both times that me and Adam have purchased properties, we've used independent financial advisors, and they are the best type of people to go to. So they work independently, which generally means they get to scan the whole of the market. They don't have any kind of relationship with any one particular bank or building society or lender as such, and they can really assess your needs and you as an individual and see what will work better for you. There are some banks that work and lend quite highly when it comes to people that have bonuses and things like that, and for us, Adam always made a consistent bonus, and it contributed quite highly to his salary. So even though his salary was a little bit lower, his bonuses were really high in one of the jobs that he had in the past. So for us, we needed a lender that was going to take into account the majority of his bonus. There are a lot of lenders that either don't take them into account or they take a really small proportion, and it's got to be guaranteed and this, that and the other. So a financial advisor can really scan all the market, look at the best rates, look at your situation, look at the amount you've got to put down as a deposit, and really scan everything. Likewise, you generally don't have to pay them for their services. Generally, they get paid by the lender they use, so you're then not forking out for that either. Generally, if you find that if you go to a bank, they normally actually charge you. So going to a bank directly isn't a good thing to do. And if you go to a bank directly, they will run something, I think it's called, it's not an API, is it? It's called like a mortgage in principle. It's like an affordability check, and you definitely want to have one of those run before you start looking at what house you want to purchase or flat or whatever it may be, because you need to know how much you can borrow. There's no point in you looking at a house that's 300 grand if you can only lend 150 grand. So a financial independent advisor will be able to scan the whole market, look at the best lenders, and then run that check on you. So when you go to look, you know you've got the best advice, the best rate, and the amount that you can actually borrow. If you just go to one bank, again, every lender's criteria is different. They might not be able to lend you as much as another bank, and you might be shortchanging yourself on the property that you can get or things like that. And likewise, once they've run that check on you, that is one credit check against your credit score. So if you go to an independent, they can obviously scan everything. You don't want to be going from one bank to another to another. So I'd really look at getting a really decent financial advisor. Okay, so the last point that I want to make are, when you are looking for a property, look at the area and assess it. If you are going to buy in central London, for example, the prices are already extortionate. There is really not much money to be made in a lot of the areas in London as it speaks. However, there are still up and coming areas, and this is where me and Adam have been quite lucky when we've bought. We've always assessed the areas that we're buying in. So our first property was just outside of London. Like I said, it was on the Kent borders, and it was a new build development. Now, you normally find with new builds that the properties that they first launch at the very beginning are the properties that are going to make the most money, because they start off a lot lower in price. Also, whilst the development is selling houses, your property might not make too much money, but generally by the time they're finished building, your property will have rose in value as well, because you're not competing with the properties that are currently on there. It's also a really good time to sell, because generally your house will be less than the last stages of the properties as well, meaning you can sell your house for more with more in it, and generally it kind of makes your house a lot more appealing. However, me and Adam were really lucky that when we bought our house, it was an area that was up and coming. They then decided they wanted to put in other things around the area, and it's basically made the area where we bought our first house boom, and we made a lot of money in our first property, and we were really lucky by that. Likewise, we already know we've made money in this property. Again, we bought off plot. We only saw like a show home in a different area. We're used to that. However, we know we've made money here. We've put in some really nice finishes and things like that. And ultimately, if you're buying at the right time in the right place, you can make a lot of money. And the last thing I guess I want to say is that your first home probably won't be your dream home. You are probably not going to get everything that you want in a dream home. And even now in the house that I live in, there are so many things that I can criticise about this house. And I love this house to pieces. It is lovely. However, for example, for me, our drive's a little bit too small. And I hate the fact that we don't have a sink that overlooks a window and things like that. And you only learn that by buying into each house and noticing the problems. Like, I've always had a sink that overlooked a window. And when I was looking at the plans of this, didn't even think anything about it. But it's something that's a massive bugbear of mine, and I hate not having a really nice high up windowsill, because the one that I've got in my current property, obviously the kids can get to. There are little things like that that you learn along the way, but just remember, it won't be your dream home. Highly likely it won't be. But with a little bit of time, a little bit of patience, you can make money in that home. If you're following all of these right things to do, you will buy your house at the best price. You'll be able to save, make money, and then move on. And eventually you will buy your dream home. Well guys, I hope this video has given you some handy hints and tips on to what we did to save for our first home and how we went about it. If you've loved this video, I would love for you to like this video. I would also love for you to subscribe if you are new. I have lots more finance and budgeting videos coming up. I have lots of new goals and self-motivation videos. I have loads of self-improvement stuff coming up. I also have my bog standard cleaning video, so if you like cleaning, I would definitely recommend you popping it over to my channel, as well as interiors and hauls and all things like that. Well, that's it from me, and I'll see you all again in another video shortly. Bye guys!
I didn't call you off for another. I didn't cross the line for